planet existed, they are unable to explain its disappearance. Did the planet itself explode? But then its pieces would have flown off in all directions, and not stayed in a single belt. If a collision shattered the missing planet, where is the celestial body responsible for the collision? Did it also shatter? But the debris circling the sun, when added up, is insufficient to account for even one whole planet, to say nothing of two. Also, if the asteroids comprise the debris of two planets, they should have retained the axial revolution of two planets. But all the asteroids have a single axial rotation, indicating they come from a single celestial body. How then was the missing planet shattered, and what shattered it? The answers to these puzzles have been handed down to us from antiquity. About a century ago, the decipherment of the texts found in Mesopotamia unexpectedly grew into a realization that there, in Mesopotamia, texts existed that not only paralleled, but also preceded portions of the Holy Scriptures. Die Heilschriften und das Alte Testament by Everhard Schrader, in 1872 started an avalanche of books, articles, lectures, and debates that lasted half a century. Was there a link, at some early time, between Babylon and the Bible? The headlines provocatively affirmed or denounced Babylon by Bell. Among the texts uncovered by Henry Layard, in the ruins of the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, there was one that told a tale of creation not unlike the one in the book of Genesis. The broken tablets, first pieced together and published by George Smith in 1876, the Chaldean Genesis, conclusively established that there indeed existed an Akkadian text written in the Old Babylonian dialect that related how a certain deity created heaven and earth, and all upon earth, including man. The vast literature now exists that compares the Mesopotamian text with the biblical narrative. The Babylonian deity's work was done, if not in 6 days, then over the span of 6 tablets. Parallel to the biblical God's 7th day of rest and enjoyment of his handiwork, the Mesopotamian epic devotes a 7th tablet to the exaltation of the Babylonian deity and his achievements. Appropriately, L.W. named his authoritative text on the subject the 7 tablets of creation. Now called the creation epic, the text was known in antiquity by its opening words, Enum Elish when, in the heights. The biblical tale of creation begins with the creation of heaven and earth. The Mesopotamian tale is a true cosmogony, dealing with prior events, and taking us to the beginning of time. Enum Elish line Abu Shamamu when, in the heights, heaven had not been named Shaflakimat Zecharia. Below, firm ground earth had not been called. It was then. The epic tells us that 2 primeval celestial bodies gave birth to a series of celestial gods. As the number of celestial beings increased, they made great noise and commotion, disturbing the primeval father. His faithful messenger urged him to take strong measures to discipline the young gods, but they ganged up on him and robbed him of his creative powers. The primeval mother sought to take revenge. The god who led the revolt against the primeval father had a new suggestion: let his young son be invited to join the assembly of the gods and be given supremacy so that he might go to fight single-handed the monster their mother turned out to be. Granted supremacy, the young god, Marduk, according to the Babylonian version, proceeded to face the monster, and, after a fierce battle, vanquished her and split her in two. Of one part of her he made heaven, and of the other, earth. He then proclaimed a fixed order in the heavens, assigning to each celestial god a permanent position. On earth he produced the mountains and seas and rivers, established the seasons and vegetation, and created man. In duplication of a heavenly abode, Babylon and its tower and temple were built on earth. Gods and mortals were given assignments, commandments, and rituals to be followed. The gods then proclaimed Marduk the supreme deity, and bestowed on him the 15 names, the prerogatives, and numerical rank of the Enlilship. As more tablets and fragments were found and translated, it became evident that the text was not a simple literary work. It was the most hallowed historical religious epic of Babylon, read as part of the New Year rituals. Intended to propagate the supremacy of Marduk, the Babylonian version made him the hero of the tale of creation. This, however, was not always so. There is enough evidence to show that the Babylonian version of the epic was a masterful religious political forgery of earlier Sumerian versions, in which Anu, Enlil, and Ninurta were the heroes. No matter, however, what the actors in this celestial and divine drama were called, the tale is certainly as ancient as Sumerian civilization. Most scholars see it as a philosophic work, the earliest version of the eternal struggle between good and evil, or as an allegorical tale of nature's winter and summer, sunrise and sunset, death and resurrection. But why not take the epic at face value, as nothing more nor less than the statement of cosmologic facts, as known to the Sumerians, as told them by the Nephilim? Using such a bold and novel approach, we find that the epic of creation perfectly explains the events that probably took place in our solar system. The stage on which the celestial drama of Anunnaki unfolds is the primeval universe. The celestial actors are the ones who create as well as the ones being created. Acti when in the heights heaven had not been named, and below earth had not been called naught, but primordial Apsu, their begetter, Mamu, and Tiamat, she, who bore them all, their waters were mingled together. No reed had yet formed, no marshland had appeared. None of the gods had yet been brought into being, none bore a name, their destinies were undetermined. Then it was that gods were formed in their midst. With a few strokes of the reed stylus, upon the first clay tablet, in 9 short lines, the ancient poet chronicler manages to seat us in front row center, and boldly and dramatically raise the curtain on the most majestic show ever, the creation of our solar system. In the expanse of space, the gods, the planets, are yet to appear, to be named, to have their destinies, their orbits, fixed. Only 3 bodies exist: primordial Apsu 1, who exists from the beginning, Mamu 1, who was born, and Tiamat, maiden of life. The waters of Apsu and Tiamat were mingled, and the text makes it clear that it does not mean the waters in which reeds grow, but rather the primordial waters, the basic life-giving elements of the universe. Apsu, then, is the sun, one who exists from the beginning. Nearest is Mamu. The epic's narrative makes clear later on that Mamu was the trusted aide and emissary of Apsu, a good description of Mercury, the small planet rapidly running around his giant master. Indeed, this was the concept the ancient Greeks and Romans had of the god planet Mercury, the fast messenger of the gods. Farther away was Tiamat. She was the monster that Marduk later shattered, the missing planet. But in primordial times she was the very first virgin mother of the first divine trinity. The space between her and Apsu was not void, it was filled with the primordial elements of Apsu and Tiamat. These waters commingled, and a pair of celestial gods, planets, were formed in the space between Apsu and Tiamat. Their waters were mingled together. Gods were formed in their midst. Gorlamu and God Lahamu were brought forth. By name they were called. Etymologically, the names of these 2 planets stem from the root LHM, to make war. The ancients bequeathed to us the tradition that Mars was the god of war and Venus the goddess of both love and war. Lamu and Lahamu are indeed male and female names, respectively, and the identity of the 2 gods of the epic and the planets Mars and Venus is thus affirmed both etymologically and mythologically. It is also affirmed astronomically, as the missing planet, Tiamat, was located beyond Mars. Mars and Venus are indeed located in the space between the Sun, Apsu, and Tiamat. We can illustrate this by following the Sumerian celestial map. The process of the formation of the solar system then went on. Lamu and Lamu, Mars, and Venus, were drawn forth, but even before they had grown in age and in stature to an appointed size, God Anshar and God Kishar were formed, surpassing them in size. As lengthened the days and multiplied the years, God Anu became their son, of his ancestors' arrival. Then Anshar's firstborn, Anu, as his equal, and in his image begot Nudimmud. With the terseness matched only by the narrative's precision, acti of the epic of creation has been swiftly played out before our very eyes. We are informed that Mars and Venus were to grow only to a limited size, but even before their formation was complete, another pair of planets was formed,